Hello everyone. So you've heard mine and Dan's mix. Dan obviously mixed it without any direction from me, so it was interesting that we both interpreted the track with some similarities and kind of wanting it to be a glitchy feel. So I'll start just by playing like a main section from it, so it's a little bit fresh while I talk about it. So yeah, it's pretty weird because I'm a pretty weird bloke. But the idea really was to sort of take sounds from random, unexpected places and stitch them together in an interesting way to make an experimental electronic track. I've sampled everything from the woods behind my house to a rock a cappella to meditation music on the track. And that's what I found really interesting about production, is just kind of taking these abstract things and manipulating the audio and making some sense out of it. For talking through it, I'm just going to pick out some of the interesting bits, and I'm going to concentrate on the more sort of creative choices in the mix rather than your sort of basic EQing and stuff like that. So I'll just kind of go through it as I've got it on the page. The bass, I think I might have done this on the Prophet in the Synth Lab, just dead simple. Looks like loads of processing, but they're really kind of basic things, just compression, putting it in mono, and then using R bass just to bring some extra harmonics out so it's more noticeable in the mix. And then the drums I'll just play. This I think I've lifted from an old project. It's just kind of rustling sounds I've recorded in the woods behind my house. Just ferreting around in the bushes, you know, because I'm weird. Same goes for this one. Sound a bit mental on their own, but in the context of the drums playing all together, they kind of make sense. There's loads of layers of different snares and claps and stuff, and different things on the 2 and the 4, just to create a bit of variation. But the kick and snare pattern is pretty simple. The main sort of movement comes from the hi-hats, and even the hi-hats are quite glitchy, just in keeping with the track. The hi-hats themselves, a lot of that kind of glitchy movement comes from the swing that I've put on it. I like to do this myself rather than use Ableton's Groove Pool. I don't know, I just get these ideas of different rhythms. So it's not even like, you know, oh, we'll just put it behind the beat or in front of the beat. Like this one is obviously before and this one's obviously after the beat. So it kind of like one hit leans into the other, different velocities, just adding a bit of movement, and then you can get some further movement with hi-hats. No one hit is the same because there's an LFO applied to the sample start position. I don't know whether my recording software will pick this up, but you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, but the sample, every time it hits, it never starts on the same place. It starts at a different point in the waveform, so just again a bit of subtle movement. And there's all these Foley sounds, just a little hi-hat solo there. They sound pretty mental on their own, just all these little hits that I've recorded. But in context, it's all to kind of give it this sort of organic, you know, this was in an actual space outside kind of feel. I know the thing Dan was most interested in was the vocals, and these are pretty weird. I'll just solo them. So yeah, they're quite strange. I think this one, which is mainly for texture, has just come from a splice sample. I've just chopped it up. and that's more for sort of just atmosphere and texture, movement. This is the main kind of call and response thing. I just had this idea that I wanted to chop up an a cappella and just get it talking to itself, but not with actual words, just like syllables and textures and stuff. So I used Ableton's Simpler to just kind of chop up different sections of it and just kind of bounce them off the other stuff that's happening in the track. And then it just goes through some mental effects. So the original idea is I wanted it to be quite lo-fi. So I've gone for this really narrow EQ band. I don't want any of this. I'm not trying to make it like a normal vocal. It's just a weird texture that acts as a lead. This obviously just cuts out annoying frequencies, but then I've rolled it off at just under 9k. Originally, like I say, to make it lo-fi, but then after compressing it, it goes through all these different versions of Crystallizer, which is a Soundtoys plugin. So it's kind of got like a slapback detuned delay on it, again to make it a bit more lo-fi. But the interesting sounds come from this one, which is a preset in Crystallizer. Those real sort of high-pitched, crystally kind of things that you can hear really wide in the mix come from this, pitching up the delays by 3 octaves. And then this is another delay, but it's a reverse delay. So it takes all the weird stuff that this is doing, delays it, but in reverse. So again, you know, just kind of weird. And then the other vocals all go through the same kind of processing. So they work together. Retro Color 20 just had a bit of distortion and grit to it. And then Effectrix is like a step sequencer, but for effects. So that'll kind of reverse it and stutter it at different parts as well. And then all the vocals go through the same one, just to make them uniform, obviously. And there's a kalimba. There's a few little hits of it over there, but I'll play this loop that comes in later in the tune. And this is I've recorded this on my own kalimba, and then lifted it from an old project that I wasn't using anymore. And you can hear it's just like really compressed, and then it's got that kind of reverse delay on it again. Context of the track. You can hear all those other little effects in there at this part, which I think it's all this kind of stuff. So there's the keys. And then there's all these little textures that I'll just solo out. That reverse thing's like, that's like I've got a mini harp, just sample little sounds, add loads of reverb and delay to it, and then it just adds a bit more texture. And then I suppose the other interesting thing that I'll talk about is this meditation sample, which I kind of took off YouTube, just ripped it, and then just chopped up this piece of meditation music. On its own, sounds a bit mental. But in the context of the track, when all the other melodic stuff is kind of bouncing off it with a bit of call and response, it kind of makes sense. There's all those weird sounds going off in the background again. Yeah, and they all just kind of bounce off each other. That one's like, I heard that and it's more just kind of a bit of abstract imagination to kind of think how that could fit into a track. And again, there's all kinds of reverbs and delays attached to that. So this mix is basically all about creative choices, swing and rhythm, and yeah, just space, movement. Yeah, so they're the